The Knicks are not done trading. It's very clear. They still need to add a center. They have a championship caliber roster now that they brought in Mikal Bridges, but there are moves to come. Who exactly are they targeting, and what could this trade look like? I'm Trevor Lane for the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, getting our subscribers up heading into the NBA season. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. So here's the latest from Ian Begley from SNY about the Knicks center position. Remember, they added Mikal Bridges, but they lost Isaiah Hartenstein. That means their lone true big that you can definitely count on. They've got guys like Precious Achiuwa. They've got Jericho Sims. But Mitchell Robinson is going to have to log a lot of minutes for the Knicks, and he has an extensive injury history. So the Knicks can't be feeling great about the center position. Ian Begley says, keep your eye on trades for a guy like Nick Richards, Walker Kessler, Robert Williams, and Jonas Valanciunas. Now, there's some other names further down the list that we're going to get to in just a minute, but let's focus on those four right now. I think all four of these guys could give you what you need as the Knicks. Remember, the Knicks' superpower as a club, it is their ability to absolutely bludgeon teams on the glass. They crush teams by going after offensive boards. I think they're actually starting to switch up some of the mentality in the NBA. We've gone away from offensive rebounding over the last decade or so. I think the Knicks are bringing it back in vogue, and we're going to see more teams crashing the offensive glass the way the Knicks do this season. But they're a fantastic rebounding team. You don't want to lose that. You don't want to lose your identity when Mitchell Robinson is not on the floor. And so I think they do need to go get another big. Let's kick it off with Nick Richards. How can the Knicks make a deal work to go get Nick Richards from the Hornets? I think he's a very talented big man. I think it would make a lot of sense to go get him. And right now, he is the backup in Charlotte to Mark Williams, who's somebody they like a lot. So let's put this together here. I do think just salary-wise, he's got a great contract. Nick Richards does $5 million on the books for this coming season, and then non-guaranteed $5 million on the books next season. And I think he's a pretty good value at $5 million. So it wouldn't even shock me if the Knicks or any team that traded for Nick Richards would actually just pick up the second year on the deal. But we go Nick Richards to the Knicks. Then we look salary-wise. The Knicks right now are hard capped at the second apron, so they can't go past that, meaning they're not going to be able to take back too much salary here in a deal. But Nick Richards, something around Nick Richards for, let's say you just want to take a guy that you had under contract, a guy that you signed, so you're going to have to wait till midseason, but do something around Precious Achiuwa. The math is pretty easy there. The Hornets are still getting a young player, and then when we talk about draft capital, it is a couple of seconds enough to go get a guy who is the backup center in Charlotte. So if it's Precious Achiuwa and a couple of second-round picks, if I'm the Knicks, I would be very interested in doing something like that. I like Precious Achiuwa just fine, but Nick Richards is more of a true center, and I think fits more what the Knicks need. So maybe there's something they could do there. Let's jump over to another guy that the Knicks were reportedly interested in, and that is Walker Kessler with the Utah Jazz. It's actually a little tricky trading for Kessler because the salary is so little. He only makes about $3 million. He is due for a new contract, but I'm still confused of why the Jazz are so down on Walker Kessler. They weren't using him in the starting lineup this past year. He was a player on Team USA, not this past summer, but the summer before. He was on Team USA and then lost his starting job with Utah and played for the Jazz Summer League team. To go from Team USA one summer to the Summer League squad the next year, man, Utah is really not that high on Walker Kessler, apparently. Now, would they move on from him? Yes, he's not happy in a reserve role. Probably shouldn't be. He's a better player than that, but he can certainly protect the rim. One of the better shot blocking bigs in the NBA. Not a perfect player by any means, and that's part of why Utah has been bringing him off the bench. But still, you could still do something around Precious Achiuwa. The Jazz could take back a little bit of salary. The problem is, in exchange for taking salary and giving up a guy like Walker Kessler, who I know the Jazz, they don't want to start him, but that doesn't mean they're completely out on him. They're going to want first-round picks. And you look at what the Knicks have. They've got the Detroit pick, 14 through 30. Is that likely to convey? No, Detroit's going to be bad again. Washington, 11 through 30. Is that going to convey? No. So you could give up your own first if you're the Knicks here, 1 through 30. Would a first, and if we go back to that Nick Richards deal that we did in a couple of seconds, would that be worth it to the Jazz? Get a first-round pick from the Knicks, probably likely to be a late first, and then you get a couple of seconds plus Precious Achiuwa. If I'm the Knicks, I clear a little bit more room under the hard cap, plus I get Walker Kessler. Yeah, I think he'd be worth giving up a first-round pick. I'm doing that. I imagine Danny Ainge may try to ask for more, but hopefully this is about where the Knicks would wind up landing if they were trying to get Walker Kessler. All right, let's move on to another player that they were reportedly interested in, and that's Robert Williams. And this one gets really tricky here because Rob Williams, look, he's extension eligible with the Blazers, but he didn't play much last season. I mean, literally only played in 6 games for the Blazers, has a lengthy injury history. So is that the kind of guy you really want to pair with Mitchell Robinson? He's a really good player when he's healthy. He can block shots, he can rebound, he gives you the things that you would want, but is he the guy that you really want to go after? And looking at his contract, $12.4 million under contract this season, $13.2 million under contract next season. So certainly a pretty significant financial commitment if you're going to go after a guy like Robert Williams. Compare that to Nick Richards, who's $5 million this year and $5 million non-guaranteed next year. There's certainly some value to that Nick Richards contract compared to Robert Williams, especially if you're scared of injuries. But Robert Williams certainly overall, if healthy, the better player, and it's not close. So let's try to put together a deal with Rob Williams, the Time Lord, going to New York. What does that look like? So again, $12 million bucks. That's a lot of money to try to match. So that's where just going with a guy like a Precious Achiuwa or something, that's not quite going to get it done. Even if we want to stack up Precious Achiuwa and Miles McBride, that's still not enough. Could you do Precious Achiuwa, Miles McBride, and then throw in Keita Bates-Diop or something like that? But then it's a 3-for-1 trade. Obviously, you're not going to send out Mitchell Robinson. Would you come off of Dante DiVincenzo? I wouldn't if I'm the Knicks. I like Dante DiVincenzo and what he does, and even that doesn't quite work out because you're taking back more salary than you're sending out, which is something the Knicks can't do. So even then, you still have to throw in, say, Keita Bates-Diop, and that would work. The only way I would consider this if I'm the Knicks is if I was extremely confident that I was getting a fully healthy season out of Robert Williams. If that's the case, okay, I can make the argument that he's worth Dante DiVincenzo. Otherwise, though, I'm not taking that gamble. I like Dante DiVincenzo too much to do that if I'm the Knicks. Let's pull him out of that. What if I do stack up Miles McBride, Keita Bates-Diop, and again, we're waiting till the midseason point when guys sign on contracts or trade eligible, and we go ahead and we send out Precious Achiuwa as well. There's a 3-for-1 trade. Does Portland have guys that they'd be willing to dump off their roster? Maybe. Do the Knicks even want to give up Miles McBride? I don't know. To be honest, I am less thrilled about this for the Knicks specifically than I am the other trades that they could potentially be looking at, which is also going to bleed through into the conversation about Jonas Valanciunas. See, the problem is if you're going to get a Walker Kessler, if you're going to get a Nick Richards, their salaries are low enough that you can build something around Precious Achiuwa and go from there. The problem is when you get into these guys that are in the 10 million range, now you're talking about trading one of your guys. Now you're getting into Dante DiVincenzo. Now you're getting into Josh Hart. And how critical were both those guys for the Knicks this past year? Maybe it does balance out your roster a little bit, but still, I don't know if that's worth it if I'm the Knicks. I'd rather focus on the lower salary guys because, again, let's take a look at this. If you are the Knicks and you want to go and look, it's a poorly kept secret that the Washington Wizards, they signed Jonas Valanciunas specifically to trade him. He's on a 3-year deal, but the third year is non-guaranteed, roughly $10 million per season. It's a great contract. I like the contract itself, but $9.9 million this season. Again, you could stack up Achiuwa and Miles McBride, but do you even want to go that far? Valanciunas is okay. He's a bruiser, but if I'm the Knicks, I would rather focus elsewhere and try to hang on to a guy like Miles McBride and see if I could do something smaller for a guy like Nick Richards or do something smaller for, say, Walker Kessler. That would just be my preferred option if I am the Knicks. Now, Ian Begley also noted that the Knicks have shown interest in Bruno Fernando, in Omer Yurtseven. You also have guys out there, veteran bigs, JaVale McGee, 36 years old, but he's got a history, former NBA champion, Bismack Biyombo, guys like that. So maybe even if the Knicks are finding the trade path inhospitable, they can find a veteran big out there that they could use for the time being until the right trade materializes. I don't think JaVale McGee or Bismack Biyombo or Bruno Fernando or even Omer Yurtseven would be the long-term solution for the Knicks. But this is another possibility. Let's say they've run into the same problems I was running into trying to trade for Jonas Valanciunas, trying to trade for someone like Robert Williams, especially with the injury history there. And if they just can't get it done for Walker Kessler, let's say the Jazz want multiple firsts for Walker Kessler. Wouldn't surprise me. It's Danny Ainge. Let's say the deal for Nick Richards simply isn't coming together. Maybe you do this as a stopgap. You go try to add someone, a veteran like JaVale McGee, just to have another big on the roster so you're somewhat protected in the event that Mitchell Robinson suffers another injury. And then in the meantime, you continue to scour the market and hope that the prices come down a bit as we get closer to the trade deadline in February. But the bottom line out of all of this, the Knicks have to do something. They need to add another big to their roster, and sooner rather than later. They don't want to put themselves in a position where suddenly Mitchell Robinson gets hurt again, and then they're really scrambling to get something done. That will absolutely erase all of their leverage, and teams will try to fleece them on the trade market if that happens. So they want to at least have some type of a stopgap in place. Maybe that means turning to one of these veterans that are still out there just to have another big on the roster. In the meantime, they need to keep scouring the market. If I'm the Knicks, I would be talking every day to the Charlotte Hornets about Nick Richards, seeing if I could figure out some way to make something work there. Again, you'd probably have to wait for Precious Achiuwa to be trade eligible in December. But we'll see what the Knicks can get done. I think this Knicks team is a contender in the Eastern Conference. I'm really excited to see what they can do out there this season. I thought injuries were their undoing last season. This is a good team, but they need a little bit more depth in the middle if they're going to really make a push this season and protect themselves against a Mitchell Robinson injury. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section. What do you think the Knicks should do to address their center position? It seems like it's just a matter of time before either they make a trade or they add somebody on the free agent market. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications as well. Till next time, see you and stay safe.